Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Ultimate Comics Podcast. My name is Nabeel Gaber and I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm Josh King, the other host.
And this is the podcast where we talk about Ultimate Marvel, an imprint of Marvel Comics that began in the year 2000, an attempt to modernize and reimagine the Marvel Universe and its characters for the 21st century. So that includes Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Fantastic Four, the Ultimates, yada, yada, yada. Josh and I have been going through every episode and discussing a handful of issues from each series in order, just to reflect, give our thoughts on these comics, how they influence Marvel and pop culture in general, what works, what doesn't, what maybe hasn't aged so well. And this week we are back to Ultimate X-Men. Also, apologies to all our listeners if you hear I sound a little hoarse or off in my voice. I'm recovering from a little cold, so
Yeah.
sorry I sound so sickly.
You know,
I'm okay, I promise.
if this is your sick voice, I would say you have the voice for NPR.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Josh. Thank you.
Good morning, NPR. Welcome to all of you who are driving and listening. That's you.
Well, hey, if anyone is listening who has connections in NPR, put a good word in for me. Nabeel Gaber. I would love to be the voice on the radio that you hear every morning.
Well, maybe this will be like NPR will have a column, but for radio for comics, and go like, "Good morning, NPR. Good morning, America."
And this is this week's comic book roundup. Yeah, have me on Wednesday mornings.
Yeah. Next news, we'll go to the weather in Albuquerque, Ireland, in
Yeah,
Ohio.
I think you could do this pretty well, Josh. I think we
No,
should
this
both be on NPR.
yeah, maybe, but this is my first time doing that voice. You've been doing it all day, I bet.
Is that your impression of me?
Yes.
Well, it's fantastic and I love it. You make me sound much more masculine than I actually am.
Yeah. And I gotta lower my voice deep, very, very much deeper than it usually is for that.
Yeah, that was like, you went to the lower registers for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this week we are talking about Ultimate X-Men once again. Ultimate X-Men issues 40 through 45. This is a story arc titled New Mutants, which, if you are a longtime X-Men fan, definitely has connotations. And by connotations, I mean it's referring to the actual team, the New Mutants. This is a pretty different spin, I think, on that idea. It's not really the same thing at all, but the title got me excited. Josh, what do you think of these issues?
I like them. I didn't think they were perfect. I know you and we talked about this before
Hmm.
recording. I think it was not clumsy, but I feel the way it was written was a bit off. In a way, like if because of this weird interlude that we'll get to, and it's a very good comic. This interlude, it feels like this was a 3 arc story as opposed to just 1 arc. To be honest,
You think too much was going on?
yeah, and I feel like it was 3 stories. It was a story with the Twink, it was a story with Wolverine, and it was a story with Emma Frost and Bush. You know,
All right, by the
the
twink, you're referring to Angel, right?
yes, but I'm not the one who called him the Twink. That was you.
Uh, I, for everyone listening, we collaborate on a script before every episode, and I swear to God, I opened up this script, and one of the first things I saw in Ultimate X-Men number 40 in the bullet points was, "We see Angel, the twink, yuck." And I can guarantee you I did not write that.
We've written some stuff like that before, and if you check the digital footprint of that script, you will notice it was written from Eastern Time.
All right, so you're clearly just trying to frame me into being
Yes.
an Angel hater.
Yeah, first of all, through text you have once called him a twink, and I got that from you. Second of all, it was written in Detroit. Why would I be in Detroit?
You are a man of mystery. I don't know why you do the things that you do, honestly.
I
I find it totally believable. You could have just taken a day trip to Detroit to like meet up with your buddies and
I
do
have
some shady activity.
I have zero friends in Detroit. I bet Michigan is a wonderful state. I've had a lot of teachers for some reason from Michigan State, even though I don't know why. I don't know. I didn't know it was a feeder school for California public school teachers, but I would never go to Detroit because I don't have any friends in Detroit. I'm not in the car business. I have no business in Detroit. Why would I write it from Detroit just to screw with you?
Why would
Maybe
I
like
write it from Detroit? I live in Boston.
you have more of a connection to Detroit than I do. You live on the same time zone as Detroit.
Isn't I'm pretty sure they're in Central.
No, Detroit is in Eastern time. When I was there, it lined up with New York time.
All right, well, you were in New York last weekend,
Yes,
which is on Eastern time.
yes, just like Detroit and
So
Boston.
you wrote it. I literally caught you red-handed. Anyways,
We're moving past this.
Angel is a twink, but I didn't write that, although it is true and I agree with you. But yes, we see in this story arc the introduction to a lot of major X-Men characters, which is very exciting. The first one being Angel, which is funny because Angel was actually one of the original 5 X-Men in the comics, going back to the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby days of X-Men. So he is the last one to appear in Ultimate X-Men. This is issue 40. By this point, they've already introduced Cyclops, Jean, Beast, and Iceman. They did all those 4 guys in like the first story arc, so poor Angel got left in
Yeah.
the dust. Angel, I feel like, is generally kind of left on the sidelines a lot of the time when it comes to the original 5.
He's generally left in the sidelines by even other X-Men comic fans, like you, who called him a twink once and said you
It's
don't
not
like
a
him.
bad thing. It's not an insult.
Oh, I think it is an insult.
I mean,
If you
he
go,
is literally a twink. He's got
yeah,
this
but you
long
don't
blonde
go.
hair. He's got 6-pack abs. He's just got these beautiful wings, and that's his whole thing until he later becomes the Archangel. But
I'll be honest. I know there's like a thing where Archangel is technically stronger than Angel, but like I don't know how Archangel is stronger.
well, that's a little too complicated for what we're talking about today.
Okay, but
But
Angel, I also feel is even by other comic fans, even people know the character in the X-Men very well, is kind of disrespected, and I do put myself in that camp. He literally has like hollow bones. He just flies. He doesn't have super strength.
yeah, in combat, he doesn't seem like a very useful character. The guy
Yeah,
literally just has wings.
yeah,
He
and
is
hollow
just a
bones.
blonde twink. Like, that's
He
it.
he also can cure AIDS. Weirdly enough, with his blood,
All right, well, now you're digging into the Chuck Austin
they
run
never retconned that.
of, well, I think they just chose to ignore it.
I mean, there are some diseases that only affect certain people for some reason based on your ancestors. Maybe mutants are immune to AIDS, and if you drink some of Angel's blood, you could cure yourself of AIDS. That's not me joking, by the way. That is an actual thing that happens in the comics.
Unfortunately, yes,
Yes.
that is something that does happen in the
Hey, let's
comics.
be fair to the writer. That was his first time writing plot.
Yeah, the Chuck Austin run on Uncanny X-Men is at least entertaining,
Yeah,
even though it is generally regarded as maybe the worst X-Men run of all time.
yeah. Well, and to be fair, if you realize that Chuck Austin was a porn writer and wasn't used to writing like actual stories, those are pretty decent stories for a guy who wasn't used to doing that.
I mean, fair enough. You are being very kind to him, and I wouldn't want to be too harsh. The guy was probably doing his best. The results were not anything to be proud of, if you ask me. I mean, other than the Juggernaut redemption arc, I think everyone agrees that was probably the standout quality aspect of that run. But we're getting off track here. But yes, let's just dive right into these issues because issue 40 does introduce us to Angel, who in this story does not have the ability to cure AIDS with his blood.
We
Um,
don't know that.
well, let's just pretend let's assume that's a given that he doesn't.
Yeah.
But so we see Angel at the beginning of this. Jean and Professor X are visiting this mansion because Angel, Warren Worthington III, is like this wealthy heir. His family has a lot of money. Professor X is going to visit to see this new mutant and talk to him about the school. But he's talking to a lot of guys in suits who are like, oh yeah, the Worthingtons are just hoping you can like take their son off their hands, like they don't want to have to deal with this anymore.
They'll pay you
And
money. He was raised by
yeah,
the butler.
yeah, literally. They're like, how much can we pay you to like take him off our hands? And Professor X is pretty disgusted. He's like, hey, this is not a financial transaction. I'm here to talk to this boy about joining my school to be one of my students. No one needs to pay me for this.
And I love the reactions like, "Oh yeah, we understand. But how much money do you want?"
It shows that even though Angel does come from a lot of money, he's still got parents that really are ashamed of him and don't show him a lot of love or affection. And so that's really part of the mutant metaphor anyways. It's like, yeah, you can be rich or come from money, but you can still be, for example, on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum, like you can be queer and your parents would not accept you, or you can start practicing another religion or do something your parents don't approve and they won't accept you. So the money is not something that makes a huge difference. But Professor X asks to meet the boy, and then they meet him, and there's this big splash page of this. He looks like an angel. That's why he
Yeah,
has his name, because he's just spread these giant, magnificent wings as he's just flying around shirtless and with no socks or shoes on, too. He's really just wearing pants.
like a twink.
Yeah, like a twink.
And they also revealed that like the parents thought about like having his wings removed. And I think in like 616, his parents like don't hate him as much as they do here. They don't despise him, but they aren't really happy that he's a mutant.
No, not really. I think throughout X-Men media, too, there's this whole thing in a lot of versions where Angel's parents really do not approve of him being a mutant or coming out as a mutant or supporting other mutants. They really are ashamed of it and they want him to hide it and they want it to just go away.
Yeah, but at least they actually kind of like him is the thing.
Yeah, in this version, they just want nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
But Professor X and Jean come home to the mansion with Angel, and the X-Men are having this really fun barbecue pool party. It's a lot like one of these panels looks just like the 90s when during like the early Jim Lee era, the X-Men are having this big pool party and everyone's laying out like I think Kitty and Storm are like laying out
Beach
on these
chairs.
lawn chairs. Yeah, Rogue and Iceman and Wolverine are playing cards and Cyclops is at the grill and with Beast and
Yeah.
so it's a lot of fun. It is very classic X-Men vibe. I feel like the 90s definitely carried over throughout as an influence for a lot of comics where doing like basketball or grilling or having a pool party was a classic X-Men pastime. And in a lot of
Yeah.
other versions too, it's carried over from the Chris Claremont years where baseball was also a classic pastime for the X-Men. So it's fun to see
Yeah.
them having just moments of leisure like this.
And I think once the characters are away from you, you develop the characters long enough. Fans don't want to always see action; they just want to see the characters have fun, interact, like a
Yeah.
team, like they are a
Hmm.
team. Like,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
exactly. But they're also a found family. Yeah.
yeah. And
That's like the whole thing.
so, Jean and Professor X show up with Angel, and Kitty stares at it and just says "dibs" because she's a horn
Yeah.
cat. She's a
Well,
horn
yeah.
cat.
Well, she is a teenage girl, so she sees like this
This twink,
beautiful blonde
twink.
boy with who's shirtless and has six-pack abs and these magnificent
Does he
wings.
have six-pack abs? I never counted in this comic.
I mean, do the math. Count them up.
He might have four. He might
Listen,
have seven.
this guy is shredded, all right? That's all I gotta
Okay,
say.
okay.
And
Like a
he's just
twink.
showing up shirtless with this long flowing blonde locks and these giant wings. So of course, pretty much everyone is immediately in love with him. All the girls are just falling head over heels for him. So of course Kitty
Yeah.
says dibs and Storm's like, "Kitty, shut up." And then Rogue gets very religious about it because she's like, "Oh my gosh, maybe this is a biblical sign."
He and Kurt.
Yeah, he and Kurt, like Nightcrawler, he's like, they're biblical signs because now we got an angel and we got a devil. And Kurt's like, gee, thanks. Like, okay.
Yeah. It's also kind of funny because in 616, Kurt's like super Catholic, super religious.
Yeah, it's pretty funny how they made Rogue very religious in this version, which, I mean, makes sense because she grew up in the South.
She did grow up religious actually in 616, technically.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes over the top with it, though, by comparison. I don't think they emphasize it as much in the main universe. In Ultimate here, she really is driving the point home.
She's also younger, and I don't think she is religious in Ultimate as much as she's saying like this awakens religious feelings. Just seeing a devil and an angel next to each other, like if I'm not religious and an angel and the devil just appear and go like, "Hey, what's up?" I'm gonna start having feelings about maybe I should reconsider like a lot of things.
Yeah, maybe.
You know,
Yeah, I get that. I just think it's interesting too they didn't take this opportunity to address any religious aspects of Nightcrawler's character because normally he is the religious one. He's a devout Catholic in
he's
the
a
main
priest.
Marvel universe. And he becomes a priest, yeah.
He even becomes pope for a bit technically before they retcon it.
All right, are we going back to Chuck Austin?
Come on, that's not a bad story. That's objectively one of his better ones. I got retconned.
We could deal with Chuck Austin on another day,
Wow,
but
you don't want a mutant pope. That's it. You're mutanophobic.
all right. Well, Josh continues to try and incriminate me.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, because the X-Men have taken Angel in, now there's a lot of protests going on outside the mansion.
It's not just protest though. It's also like a lot of religious people going like, maybe this is a sign of the end times that there's just an angel here, and there's literally a sign that says God is a mutant out there.
Yeah, it's a mixed group of people. There are some people that are very anti-mutant and very much like this is wrong and this is blasphemy. And then there's a group of people who are now pro-mutant and they're like, yeah, God is a mutant and we have angels on our side and everything. So
I,
it's a lot of buzz, a lot of people with signs outside the Xavier mansion. And the only way this got out, we find out, is because Beast has this fan site online and he ended up leaking it to them. And Gene's like, are you kidding me, Beast? Like, seriously, Hank?
I think he says everyone has a fan site. He's just the only one who talks to them.
Yeah, he interacts with the fans because I guess he likes the attention. But Beast has blown it again for at least the
Yeah,
second time in the Ultimate Universe.
because of the internet.
Yeah, once again, because of the internet. Beast should not be on the internet.
We all know if Ultimate Beast was on the internet now, he'd fall for those scams. He probably would have invested too much into like really bad crypto
Yeah,
or a Nigerian prince. But I have not heard that scam in a while. Like it was a
yeah,
joke when I was a kid, so
yeah, that's how old that scam is, yeah.
Yeah,
But back then in the early 2000s, he totally would have fallen for that.
yeah. He probably would have go like, oh yeah, like he definitely would have fallen for the Tinder swindler.
No,
Tinders,
totally.
yeah. He probably would have bought fake Taylor Swift concerts trying to like flip him.
No, he would have.
Yeah.
But yeah, after all this buzz comes out, Warren Angel flies away and leaves, and everyone's talking about how to find him. And literally, Professor X tells Storm to go after Angel because
Yeah.
apparently he can tell that Angel's got the hots for Storm.
So later in this arc, that it's really kind of like three arcs. Professor X says, "Oh, I don't go into people's heads without their permission." I'm like, "Yeah, you do. You just
Yeah,
did."
literally. Within this same arc, he will later say, "Oh, I don't violate people's minds. I don't enter their thoughts without permission." And that is total BS. And he's also just pimping out Storm here. He's like, "Well, he's attracted to you, so you should talk to him so you can get him back."
Well, maybe the X mansion and the X school just has like a shortage of money.
Yeah, they need Warren's money. And I mean, they're funded by the government now, though, so they should be fine.
I mean, I don't know. Schools are getting defunded left and right now.
I mean, yeah, but back then, in that fictional Bush administration in the Ultimate Marvel universe, mutants were getting a lot of support at the time.
Yeah, from Bushy of all people.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course that pisses Beast off. But Storm does go fly after Angel.
Yeah, and she's like, "Yeah, we don't think you're weird," because he's like, "Why do you're all freaks and you think I'm weird?" And she's like, "We don't think you're a freak. We're all staring at you because we think that you're beautiful." And
Because he's a twink,
yeah, and he looks like an angel. That's his whole thing. So of course
like
everyone's
most
going to stare at
twinks.
him. Yeah. And Storm goes on this whole spiel about how at this school they get a chance to just be themselves and show the world that they're not good people, they're not bad people, they are just people like anyone else. And it gives a good bit of characterization for this version of Storm,
Yeah,
which we haven't had so much of up
yeah.
until this point. She talks about how she loves to write, and she gets the chance to do that at this school, and
She also says something interesting, which is she doesn't want to be identified with her powers. She goes like, "My powers are cool and I love him, but they're not the main thing about me."
which is true. And I think if you look at the main version of Storm too, I'm like, yeah, that's not the best thing about Storm. Like, Storm is such a cool character even without her
Yeah,
powers. But then she also says, Angel would be really great for mutant PR too, because people would listen to him because he's so beautiful and he looks like an angel. So he should use his resources and his gifts that he has, not just his mutant gifts, but this is the thing about Angel, also just the fact that he is so easily approachable and everyone looks up in the sky and they see this beautiful angel, and that is good PR for mutants. And
yeah,
that's how I kind of came around to the character of Angel, honestly, because I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, it's interesting because he's different than a lot of other mutants who they're not publicly presentable or publicly facing. A lot of their mutations seem like kind of a detriment to them. But here he comes and he shows up with these beautiful wings, and he looks like an angel, and he's got money and resources, and I'm like, yeah, that can help the X-Men and the mutant cause. Like, that's a good thing to have on your side. That's someone you want on your team.
I mean that's the plot of X-Force, that his charisma and his money is like what you need. It's also kind
Yeah.
of funny. I think it really talks a lot about like, being rich is like basically a superpower all on its own, and being
Yeah.
comics rich is like even better
Yeah,
because like
because you basically have unlimited money.
yeah, because at this point like we're at the point in comics where Batman, Iron Man's wealth go up every comic because they just keep buying more stuff, and comic
Hmm.
artists just boost their wealth. Though at this point, also in real life, they probably can't spend all of it in real life at this point.
No.
Yeah, but I do find it funny that you're like, oh, Angel's like powers are not really his slight. Those kind of suck. He has hollow bones. It's the
Yeah.
fact he's hot, which is like hot people privilege, that I'm upset about.
I mean, the thing about people with privilege is you gotta take advantage of it for good purposes. I feel like, and I think that's all too, unfortunately, it's just not real. It's all too much of like a fantasy that you get in comics, right? With people like Bruce Wayne or Tony Stark using their money and their resources for benevolent purposes without really any agenda to it. And that's what you see with Angel and as a Warren Worthington III and how he uses it. So it's just nice to see, if only for that fantastical element of, wow, wouldn't it be nice if this person was real? If we had someone who was this good looking and rich and charismatic who actually used it for a worthy cause?
Yeah. Though I think at that point in life we were just less upset with rich people.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That definitely, honestly.
Yeah. Um, I do find it funny I mean, also I don't even know if he's rich in Ultimate. I know he has a rich family, but in 616 he could spend their money, and I don't know if he can in Ultimate. So maybe he's not even rich.
Yeah, I mean, he is just a teenager, so I don't know if he's
Uh,
able to really use any of his family's money at this
and his
point.
family
But
despises him.
right, but at this point, at least he's good for PR is the thing
Yeah.
in Ultimate X-Men.
So
So he uses that and he goes to the protesters in front of the mansion and he's swayed by Storm's words and he just says, "Hey, I'm
my
not
name
an
is
actual
Sam.
angel. Well, my name's Warren."
Oh, my name. Oops. But basically, he says like, "I'm just a regular guy. I'm not an angel." And it kind
Yeah.
of reminds me of the line from Ghostbusters. So like, when they think you're a god and ask if you're a god, you say yes.
Yeah.
And he does the opposite. He goes, "I'm not an angel. I'm just a regular dude who has like wings growing out of his body." And honestly, the crowd I bet is pretty disappointed. I know they kind of like we get the implication they disperse, but
Hmm.
yeah, imagine you think like there's it's like that scene in Life of Brian where they go like, "He's the Messiah," and he goes like, "No, I'm not."
Yeah, that's literally
Yeah,
yeah, it. And so they're like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And so
yeah,
we cut to Beast at a diner, and he's literally reading that day's paper, which says like Angel myth debunked. So it's all over the media now. Everyone knows. And Beast is approached by this mysterious stranger who we don't see on the page, but
yeah.
they make him an offer apparently that he can't refuse, and that's how the issue ends, on this ominous note of, oh, what's gonna happen? Like,
Mhm.
who is Beast falling in with this time?
Yep. We just said like Beast falls for these scams. Beast is also just kind of a joint. And then here's the thing, like Beast here is just genuinely a nice and somewhat naive guy, I feel.
Yeah, I think he is,
Yeah.
really. And I
Yeah.
think it's hard for him too because a lot of his downfall comes from insecurity and jealousy,
Yeah.
especially in these comics, because originally when you see him talking to who he found out to be the Blob and getting catfished, I think a lot of it came after his breakup with Storm because he felt insecure about whether or not Professor X messed with their minds and made it so that she fell in love with him because he didn't
Yeah.
feel like he was worthy of that affection. And then this time he's also jealous of Angel because now Storm and Angel are talking, and he's jealous because Angel is, of course, this beautiful blonde twink with wings.
Haha!
Yeah, I said it. I
Yeah,
never said
but
you were wrong.
okay. Well, I mean, I was using your idea. Like, here's the thing. The way Millar wrote Professor X, I don't blame Beast because Millar's Professor X is incredibly manipulative. This is Bendis's Professor X. He does just pimp out to a certain degree Storm.
Mm,
Like, I don't blame Beast. And it's not just him. Like the military, we later find out in a few comics will go like, are we sure Professor X is just not controlling the president?
yeah. No,
Yeah,
literally. So that
yeah,
is just an issue with Professor X in general and his powers and just who he is and
yeah,
being untrustworthy.
yeah.
Now, then we get
The
into the next issue, issue 41, which is the second part of the storyline, but does feel like a standalone story on its own. This
yeah.
is an issue that is constantly referenced in social media, and people are making videos about on YouTube or Instagram Reels or TikTok or what have you. Everyone talks about this issue.
To be fair, it is I feel the most standalone, and it's a comic I could see in 616. Like
Yeah,
Bendis is a 616 writer to a certain degree. He is very familiar with these characters. This is his take on Wolverine, and it's not a bad take. It is genuinely a fun comic, and it's very famous. Yeah,
yeah. No, it's a great issue. This is all about this kid who wakes up one morning and he's getting ready for school, and his mom is gone, even though he keeps calling for her. And he walks by, and we see a shot of, in this panel, just her clothes on the floor, like she's been vaporized. He
yeah.
walks down the street, and there's a dog collar, but no dog, so dog's vanished. Seems pretty empty. Every time he passes by somewhere, like people just vanish. And this kid goes to school and talks to his girlfriend, and then it's this horrific scene of,
People just start evaporating, basically.
yeah, they all just start evaporating around this kid and like melting and like, yeah, just burning alive basically and dying in this like horrifying way. They've been exposed to these toxic chemicals or
Yeah,
something.
and his girlfriend accuses him like, "It's you."
Yeah, as she's brutally dying in front of him and disintegrating almost.
Yeah, and Wolverine tracks this kid down to a cave. Smart kid. He knows he's a threat to society, and
He just
goes inside
goes
a
and
cave.
hides in a cave, yeah.
That's a sense of common good that you could honestly respect. This kid has the heart of a hero, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, this kid at least knows that this is horrifying and wrong and awful, and he has to hide away. Imagine if
Yeah,
he had been worse. He could just go, and he's like, all right, time to go around murdering everyone with this. Because we find out that this is this kid's mutant power,
yeah,
is that he just kills all organic matter around him
yeah.
naturally.
That's what Wolverine tells him, and he goes like, "Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen?" And Wolverine goes, "Oh no, we covered it up. Shield said it's a gas leak. A lot of people died." But he
Yeah,
goes like, "We can't." And he goes, "I can't let this know. Shield, the president, and X, we can't let this know. It's a mutant that did this
yeah,
because." And like he's right. Like realistically, mutants are a threat to society. Unlike every minority that the mutants are kind of like standing for. Because like the thing is like a mutant can just like have a power to just kill off an entire street. In the Logan movies, Professor X having like brain damage means like he accidentally just wipe out entire sections of the city.
hmm
Yeah, and
yeah. I think that is a flaw in the mutant metaphor,
yeah,
is that so many mutants are a danger to society without even intending to be.
Yeah.
Like this kid, for instance, just goes around like killing. It says that he killed 265 people, maybe more,
Yeah.
just
Triple
by
digits.
accident. Yeah, triple
Triple
digits
digits.
because his power just activated,
Yeah.
which is so dangerous and terrifying to think about. And so
And
that is kind of a flaw in the mutant metaphor in that they can't really stand in for all minorities in that way
yeah. Any
because,
minority.
yeah, because it's not like you're a Muslim kid walking around and all of a sudden you blow up people with your mind.
Whoa,
Like,
tell that to Fox News.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure Fox News would have you believe that. But
Yeah.
as far as my experience has gone, I have not done that as a
Yeah.
Muslim kid. So,
And same with like Asians, black people, or gay people. You're not gonna find out, oh, I hit puberty. Time to blow up a school. Oh boy.
yeah, yeah.
And
Like,
to be
that
fair
just
to this
doesn't
kid,
happen accidentally.
and to be fair to this kid, inside this kid finds out something's wrong, he does hide from the rest of society. And well, and you know, there's a good line where he goes like, "Hey, if my genetics turned out a little differently, like I could have been one of the X-Men." And Wolverine goes, "Yeah," and that's true.
Yeah,
This kid was brave enough and courageous enough to like hide in a cave to help other people or prevent other people from suffering. And there's something admirable
yeah,
about this kid, honestly.
yeah. Which makes it all the more tragic and sad because this kid is devastated realizing what he's done and he can't live with it. He's breaking down, he's crying, he's sobbing uncontrollably, he's distraught, as you can imagine.
I was also gonna say he also complains about the fact he and his girlfriend never had sex, and he's gonna die a virgin.
Well, yeah, I think that's just the idea of like this kid had his entire life ahead of him and so much he never did, including that he
And
will now
college.
never get to do. And college, yeah, and like
We
a lot
never
of other
know.
fun things.
Maybe there'll be like a mutant who's immune to like biological like evaporating on sight, and he could just do it with that person.
Yeah, we'll never know
Yeah,
because
well, I mean
this,
Wolverine is immune to that. That's why Wolverine was came
yeah,
to him.
that Wolverine was sent because he does have a healing factor, so he'd
Yeah,
probably be fine.
yeah, and he gives him a beer.
Yeah, that's how you know it's bad because this is like a 14-year-old kid and Wolverine just hands him a beer. I'm like, oh, so Wolverine knows this is not going to end well for the kid and he's just trying to ease his pain.
If I have to put a kid down, I would not give him beer. Beers are very much an acquired taste. You're not gonna like it your first time. He's not gonna like it at all. Like maybe if you had like a month to live, I'll like, hey man, here's some beer.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something to just to feel anything else maybe. You get the taste of beer in your mouth and it might,
It sucks.
yeah, but at least it distracts you from other things that suck just for a moment.
Yeah, Wolverine also doesn't seem happy about it because he kills the kid and he calls Fear and he goes like, it's over, I did it. But it's not really
Yeah.
happy about it. It's a necessary evil.
Yeah, because the kid also asks him to kill him. He tells Wolverine to just do it because he can't live with this.
Yeah,
And Wolverine's like, finish your beer. And the kid's like, just do it.
yeah,
And so it's sad. And I think the art by David Finch is so well done because you can see the pain in Wolverine's face
mm-hmm.
when he's just staring at the kid and because he knows what he has to do. So it's a really well done. I mean, it plays a bigger part in this narrative in this story arc, but it's a well done one and done Wolverine story, I think. And I think it shows how he's kind of like this angel of mercy and he does a lot of the dirty jobs that other people just couldn't do because they're so difficult and I think just morally compromising in a sense, but sometimes there's no other choice really. So
yeah,
it's such a good issue, yeah. But moving on, we get to our next issue. Just completely moving on from this fantastic one and done Wolverine comic, we get introduced in issue 42 to Sean Koyman, aka Karma. She
yeah.
was a member of the New
Oh,
Mutants.
is she on? Is she on?
She on?
Yeah,
I always just said it as Sean.
is she on?
Okay, well I
There's an
trust you.
apostrophe.
I'm sorry. I mean, they always just say Sean in the comics.
Yeah,
All right. Well, Karma. She is
yeah,
known as a founding member of the New Mutants. So this
yeah.
is
Great
another
comic.
big introduction. Yeah. If
Yeah,
For those of you listening, if you can't see, Josh saluted after he said
yeah.
"great comic" talking
Oh
about
yeah,
New Mutants.
the Demon Bear saga was amazing.
That's an
It's a
iconic
classic.
story.
It's a
Yeah.
classic. It makes a great horror movie. New Mutants. Not a good movie, but a very fun, watchable horror movie.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's nothing special, but it's fine.
And by the way, Laura Bush is also in this panel.
Yeah,
By
the
the way,
first lady. Yeah.
yeah. Which is I don't like their take on it because I feel like they make it seem Laura Bush is like the manipulative one, manipulating Bush.
Yeah, which was not the case because we know it was Cheney.
Yeah.
But anyways,
And Bush.
yeah.
No, but the other weird thing is like I feel it's a little sexist to go like, Bush is that sweet old dumb guy, and everyone else is manipulating, including that bitch of a wife. And I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, maybe this hasn't aged. This
No.
specific thing hasn't aged well. Yeah.
No, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Laura Bush is against Karma joining the cabinet and being an aide to the president, but she gets kicked out for disagreeing, and Karma becomes an aide to the president. And then back at Xavier's, Cyclops is talking to Jean, and he's showing a lot of concern for her, especially after Jean. If anyone who read along will remember, Jean just killed a bunch of Weapon X soldiers during the previous storyline. And
she killed
Scott's...
2 dudes. Didn't she just kill like 2 dudes or something? I don't know.
Yeah, it might have just been like 2 or 3 dudes in a helicopter that she blew up.
You know, I bet the X-Men have already killed, like, they blow up helicopters all the time, not even including all the shit Wolverine gets up to. Like, they definitely have killed way more than 2. It's like the scene in Avatar where they go and goes, I'm against killing, and I'm like, hey, dude, last episode you blew up 10 ships. There's no way no one died from this.
I think the bigger concern is that Scott is concerned that Jean is losing control of her powers, or doesn't have control of her powers, because she's developing this new Phoenix persona that we've seen in previous storylines.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think when people have killed in the past in storylines and then later turn around and go killing is wrong, it's like, okay, but we just saw you do that. Like, I can see Cyclops being against it, though.
Yeah. I think the thing with the Phoenix is that I kind of like the slow burn with the Phoenix. Mm-hmm. Get it? Burn?
Yes. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, because I feel like the Phoenix is the thing that, like, you know, like, I feel the thing with Ultimate Marvel, and to be fair, it's the point of Ultimate Marvel that can be a little, is that it moves very fast. Like, Spider-Man, within, like, what took decades to do in 616, Spider-Man does within like a few years or a few months, which is like introduce Venom, Dr. Octopus, Sinister Six. But this one, and they don't do this with the Phoenix Force. They did like the whole story with the Hellfire Club earlier. But so far it seems with the Phoenix, they're doing it a slow burn. They're, you know, keeping the embers, you know, really hidden. No, but
I get it. She's the Phoenix. You don't have to sprinkle in all the puns.
Fine, but they're not doing this all at once. Other than the Hellfire Club, they are trying to just do this little by little, and I feel that makes it much more of a bigger thing. Is the fact they teased it for so long that when it's time, I feel it's going to be big. That being said, I have read much of Ultimate X-Men a while ago, and I don't remember if they ever do it. So yeah,
we'll see. But yeah, Jean is like, well, I killed those guys, but I had to do it. It was an unfortunate casualty. And she kind of calls out Professor X's school and the Institute, saying, like, this is kind of what we were trained to do. Like, we're trained to be child soldiers.
Yeah,
so
because they are.
So she's like, I really just did what we were trained for.
It's kind of like the scene in X-Men the movies where they're like literally wearing tight black leather uniforms like SHIELD agents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Scott is still concerned. He thinks maybe Xavier tampered with her mind because she was initially very distraught over killing these soldiers, but then all of a sudden she felt better. But Jean says, no, Xavier's just helping me with my powers. And so it's kind of an unresolved scene because at least they come to the conclusion that they love each other and they care about each other.
Yeah.
But there's not really an agreement on this issue. So I guess we'll pick that up later. And then Professor X calls together all the students and says, hey, there's this rock star who's planning to go public as a mutant, and so we should probably go check her out. And it's Dazzler, which is very exciting.
I love Dazzler.
Me too. Another iconic X-Men character introduced in this arc. They just keep going and going. This arc is chock full of them. And so Cyclops, Kitty, and Colossus go to see Dazzler perform, and she's so different because Dazzler was introduced as this disco singer, really, this like fun disco character.
Yeah.
And in this version, she's way more punk rock. She's covered in tattoos. She's got this real big spiky hairdo as well.
They're in some like underground hipster grunge era, but not grunge because this is different from grunge music. Like underground New York City, LA, Seattle bar where everyone's
And
sweating.
she's like swearing so much, and like there's so many censored words in her music too when she's singing.
I will defend this choice because for two reasons. In the 2000s, Dazzler was more punkish, and like even her costume, this was like a very scantily clad Dazzler. It was like going that direction, and Dazzler in being a disco character makes sense because she was made in the era of disco, but we're past disco now.
Well, it's funny because she was made at the tail end of disco, really. She was introduced in 1980, so disco was pretty much finished at that point.
Yeah, but the writers didn't know that. And similar, she's a punk singer, but in the 2000s, punk was on its way out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, grunge. She's not even grunge technically. She's more like metal. And metal, I think instead of resurgence now, maybe I'm not into music that much, but I think metal was on its way out around the time of this comic. So
yeah, but she's a totally different version of this character from the original, and Kitty likes her music, but they approach Dazzler, the X-Men do, in an alley after the show, and Dazzler's basically like, yeah, go away. And she also drops hints that maybe other mutant groups have come to see her too and tried to recruit her.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, we're not getting anything out of her. And meanwhile, back at the mansion, Storm is sitting around working on her powers, and she creates these like little concentrated mini storms to like zap lightning on top of her book. And she's very excited because she goes to tell Beast, and she goes to his room and he's gone.
Yeah. I do have one more thing to say about the Dazzler thing.
What's that?
It does remind me when she originally met the X-Men. Cyclops like, have you ever wondered like where your powers come from? And she goes, not really.
Yeah, that's an iconic panel.
Yeah, and I think Bendis, there's no way Bendis didn't do that on purpose. Bendis is too much of a Marvel nerd, like us.
That's true. He is. You can tell he's a huge fan of the original, like classic Claremont X-Men run as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, all the early X-Men stuff. So that's a good point. But yeah, Beast has vanished from the X-Mansion. Storm is pissed. Thunder and lightning are coming out of the sky.
Yeah.
And back at the White House, the president is being briefed on issues that are arising with the X-Men. They're like, hey, a lot of people think that you're being mind controlled by Professor X because of his telepathic powers, of course. And they show the brain scans and they're like, hey, it looks like you're not being mind controlled by Xavier, because this is what a brain looks like when it's being mind controlled. This is what it looks like when it's normal. Yours is normal, but his Professor X's powers still make him untrustworthy to the public. People aren't going to believe that you're not being mind controlled. And also, they point out Wolverine being sent in the previous issue to clean up that issue with the mutant kid killing everyone. Yeah. They're like, look who they have on the team, like an actual murderer.
But they even go like, wasn't this sent by S.H.I.E.L.D.? And they go, that's not the point.
Yeah, he's still one of the X-Men, so they're like, we're having a bad time with PR on that front. It's been difficult, especially with the whole Angel debacle as well, with all the controversy that was spurred from that.
Yeah. The other thing, though, is that I find interesting is that, like, based on Millar's Professor X, they're not that wrong. Professor X is kind of incredibly manipulative. I mean, this guy
He's
literally
pretty shady. Yeah,
this guy literally lied about killing Magneto.
Yeah, that's true.
And that probably led to like a ton of deaths down the line,
So it makes sense that the administration would be like, maybe we should work with some different mutants.
Yeah.
Ones that don't have Professor X's powers and track record of being shady and morally ambiguous. So they say we literally need new mutants. And Emma Frost appears, ladies and gentlemen. Emma Frost has entered the room.
Yeah.
She's entered the building. So, again, they just keep hitting us with all the iconic X-Men characters just appearing for the first time in this arc.
And what's really interesting is that, we'll get into this later, this is a very different Emma Frost than the ones we have in 616.
Oh, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get into that as we talk about, because that's the end of issue 42. Going into 43, we open at the X Mansion again, and of course Storm is upset that Beast has just vanished, and everyone is surrounding Storm in the kitchen asking, do you know where he went, or why he left, or what happened? And she's like, I didn't even know he was gonna leave. How am I supposed to know why he left? And they're like, hey, Professor, do you know why Beast left, or how? Like, couldn't you have just read his mind? And Professor X is like, oh, I would never read my students' minds without permission. And I'm like,
But you just did!
yeah, you just did that like 2 issues ago, maybe 3. I don't know.
And you've done way worse.
Yeah, you've done worse.
You
Like,
definitely have
especially
read
when
minds.
written by Mark Miller. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, even by Bendis, because we didn't talk about this, but there's a time when he goes, I want the person who leaked this to confess, and know I've read all your minds, so I already know
Yeah.
who leaked it. And I'm like, that's what?
Yeah, so he's already stated explicitly that he has read his students' minds without permission. So
Yeah.
stop lying, Professor X.
Yeah.
We know who you are.
Yeah. The Emma Frost back in the Situation Room, they also like, are you a mutant? And she says yes. And she immediately gets tackled and her head banged against the desk by the Secret Service.
Yeah, they're like idiots. They're like, we have a security breach, we got a mutant. And everyone in the administration in the White House Situation Room is like, yeah, she has clearance, stand down.
Yeah.
And so after that brief scene, Emma explains who she is. And yeah, she's a school teacher who works out of Chicago, and she's been running mutant education seminars that
With
have
the
been
governor?
supported. Yeah, the governor of the state has supported these seminars, and because of the governor, that's how she knew the chief of staff in the White House, and that's how she got this meeting in the Situation Room. And she's very different here in a lot of ways, because she doesn't seem to have any telepathy as far as we know, but she does
Yeah.
turn into this crystal-like substance, as they say, in front of her, which is
Whoa.
basically her power of turning into diamond in the main comics.
And which is interesting because when she gets that crystal power, when this was made, she only got her crystal powers like just a few years ago.
Yeah, that was her secondary mutation that she got in the Grant Morrison New X-Men run. So that's a very recent power, relatively, when you look at when this comic was published.
Yeah. It's also not her least famous power. It's just like, I guess it's just too on the nose with the Frost thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is very different because she does not have ties to the Hellfire Club like she does in the main comics. She is a teacher, just like she is in the main comics with the Massachusetts Academy, but she's just literally a public school teacher.
She's also less morally ambiguous. She's not like running a superhero, an alternative X-Men. She's not running an action squad.
Yeah.
She really is just a teacher, and she goes like, my job is to make sure like kids have a safe place to learn.
Yeah.
Very admirable goals.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, I like her more than Professor X.
Yeah, I like her more than Professor X too, and she goes on to about how, oh, the only way to deal with the mutant issue is education, like not through violence the way the X-Men handle it, and this is a social issue. And it's also revealed that she was once not only a student of Professor X, but it's hinted that they were romantically involved, because she said more than just a student-teacher relationship, and I'm like, yikes. Professor X, you disgusting dog.
Well, he already treats his wife horribly, so what's one more crime on the list?
But like, if I had a nickel every time Professor X has an inappropriate relationship with one of his students,
I think his relationship with Scott's inappropriate enough. Like,
yeah,
not
like
sexually,
that,
obviously, but you know.
Yeah, not in a sexual way, but still, like,
Yeah.
it does overstep a lot of boundaries.
Like,
as he does with a lot of his students. He oversteps so many boundaries.
The interesting thing is that, like, Emma's Frostbite thing is like, oh, the mutants in the school should not be used for soldiers. We are students. They should be safe to learn and teach the world, be models. Which is right. That's, like, the right answer teachers should say. And the Bush administration is like, yeah, that's right. Professor X is evil with his child soldiers. And I'm like, I agree with you guys, but also, that was your idea of, like, plugging them into the military?
Yeah, like, you guys were the ones who funded the school and actually made the X-Men fully deputized, basically like agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. What do you mean? You supported this. You just did a 180 all of a sudden, and we're like, yeah, we should actually be pacifists.
How dare these mutants become, like, child soldiers that we commissioned
Yeah, you gave them the money and the funding. What are you saying?
specifically to do that.
Yeah, so
But
they're just turning on this because they're like, hey, maybe this wasn't such a great idea.
for those, I'm just gonna do a light spoiler. The big thing of this arc is that Emma Frost is wrong, Professor X is right, and I'm like, I think Emma Frost is still right. She says the right thing a teacher should say. School should be about education, not defense or
That's
not
true.
military. Like, because these guys aren't learning defense; they're learning how to attack.
Well, Emma's also coming at this from a perspective that I think Professor X has a lot earlier in Ultimate X-Men as a whole. It's during the Proteus storyline in Ultimate X-Men that Xavier is advocating for more pacifist ideologies and more focused on education and peaceful means of solving problems. And I think you see where that gets him when they deal with the Proteus arc and he can't solve the solution in a non-violent way because Proteus is out of control and murdering thousands, and Colossus just ends up killing him.
I think there's a difference between like acting out of like self-defense and the way Professor X just plugged it into the military and is like thinks it's the right thing to do. Is the
That's
thing?
true. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think Professor X does value education for sure. But I think, yeah, in the past couple storylines, since the end of Mark Miller's run, the fact that they are now implemented as this government funded school that has connections to S.H.I.E.L.D. does make it a little too militaristic.
yeah, and I think he's right to teach him defense. Like, but it just goes an odd way, in my opinion. I never got the vibe from the Ultimate that Professor X is primarily an educator. It mostly seems like he is a politician or like some revolutionary or some master manipulator who just happens to also be an educator. And I get the opposite vibe from Emma Frost. She's a educator who's willing to be a politician and a power player for the goal of education.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah, yeah. I that's a long train of thought that I just built.
Well,
Choo choo.
I'm tracking with you. Yeah, choo choo. All
Choo
aboard
choo.
the Joshua Kang Express.
The Kang track.
Yeah, I'll hop on board. I'll
Yeah.
get a ticket. I'll ride first class on that train. I love it.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You didn't pay for first class.
Okay, I'll be in coach.
That's right. That's right.
Just putting me in my place as usual.
Yeah. Unless you pay me.
I'm not paying you.
Dinosaur train. Dinosaur train.
Anyways, we then cut to Beast in a hotel room being confronted by Professor X's mental projection.
Yeah.
And it's this very cagey confrontation where Beast won't really give the real reason as to why he left the Institute or the X-Men. All he really says is, listen, I'm just not going to put my life on the line anymore over people like Wolverine or something.
And
And I'm like, Wolverine just catching strays. Like, I don't think they really had any issues with each other during this series, but here we are.
he also Professor X goes, just all he also says, just because Angel likes Storm doesn't mean Storm likes Angel. And I'm like, dude, it's way too late to have said that. You should have said that
Yeah,
earlier.
you should have said that way earlier. Yeah.
And also, he's using Cerebro to talk to Beast. There's a scene where he goes, "I'm sorry," like he tells like his students, "I not happy that, but we have to use Cerebro." So he's
hmm
not entering Beast's mind technically, but
Yeah,
that's just a
he's just
side thing.
projecting his mental image in front
Yeah,
of Beast, but yeah, since Beast isn't coming back, Xavier's like, "Well, I'm disappointed, but all right, I'll leave you." And
yeah,
so he goes, and it is revealed that Beast is staying in a hotel in Washington D.C., which is
yep.
important because then back in the Situation Room, Emma reveals this lineup she has of candidates for this new mutant squad.
And that includes Beast.
That does include Beast, which they include Beast because they wanted to soften like any public backlash that they get from
Oh,
turning on the X-Men and Xavier being like, well, we have one of the X-Men on
yeah,
our team. This is like a peacekeeping squad. They're spokespeople for this pro-mutant agenda
yeah,
and kind of a more peaceful, non-violent task force.
yeah.
And so they've also got Dazzler there, and the president's like, what's her deal? I don't think I like it. Then they also got Alex Summers is introduced. Again, Havoc, another big X-Men character
Yep.
introduced, and he's Scott's older brother in this version, which is pretty different because in the main universe he's his younger brother actually, and he
Which
does have younger brother energy.
he is also the older brother in First Class, the movie, and I
That's
guess
right,
this is where
yeah.
they got the older brother thing, so the younger brother thing in the movies.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Well, also he has a girlfriend, Polaris, and they seem to be going strong. Lorna Dane, green hair, green lips, green eyes.
Yeah,
Everyone's favorite.
but she also controls magnetism, and immediately the president's like, nope, no more magnet people. After Magneto, never again, which is hilarious. He's like, can't do it. But of course, Alex and Lorna are dating, so they're not going to go without each other.
Yeah. And it's funny because they I forget who it is. They keep insisting you get it's a 2-for-1 deal. Just take it. And the president goes, no magnet people, over and over again.
Yeah, he just can't. He can't do it with Polaris.
He says no to the Wolf Girl, which is Wolfsbane. And to
Yeah,
be fair,
probably.
in 616, Wolfsbane is the child diddler.
Well, I mean, we don't have to address that.
Okay, you really don't like some of these X-Men runs, do you?
Well, listen, Wolfsbane having an inappropriate relationship with her student is just something we don't even need to get into.
But you don't like Wolfsbane?
I'm, I'm, I'm fine with Wolfsbane. I'm
She's played by Arya
ambivalent.
Stark in the movie for some reason, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch it now that I've seen Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you get it. Arya Stark is a wolf. She plays Wolfsbane.
So the president says no to the Wolf Girl, probably Wolfsbane, and then he says no to Bishop for his criminal record. But at least we know Bishop is out there, so maybe
Yeah.
we'll see him soon. But he reluctantly accepts Dazzler on this task force. And after the president leaves with Emma Frost, there's an anti-mutant faction revealed talking about taking back their country and taking a stand against the mutants and all this stuff. Like they are this insurrectionist force within the White House cabinet just plotting against mutants.
Literally saying the same thing the real insurrectionaries would say in like 20 years.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
They are talking about the same kind of stuff. So it's this big pushback against like pro mutant material. Yeah.
This isn't political, but like, you and I were talking about this before. I mean, I was getting deja vu, not from politics, but we just covered an issue where they try to take over the government, these anti-mutant forces.
Mm-hmm.
And same with like between Beast leaving and the second insurrection, trying to do a coup to stop the pro mutant agenda. And it's like it does feel like a repeat of like past storylines to some degree.
Yeah, I can see that. I think they find new spins to put on things, though. I think coming up with this idea of this new mutants task force was an interesting twist on things, introducing new characters there, and just dealing with the conflict of that is pretty interesting. So I think that got my attention more than the anti-mutant insurrectionists within the government.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'm interested in like, oh, what's this different group about and who's on it and what's that going to look like? Anyways, at the end of issue 43, Nick Fury and Dum Dum Dugan arrive at the Xavier Institute.
I
That's
still
his name,
can't.
Josh.
I know it's his name. It's just a dumb name, okay? It's
It's Dum
objectively.
Dum Dugan.
I know it's Dum Dum Dude. It's just a dumb name, and that's why they don't ever call him that in Ultimates. Just saying. Ugh.
Damn, you really don't. It's a fun nickname, Dum Dum.
Well,
He's Dum
why
Dum
is
Dugan.
Dum Dum Dugan okay, but Doctor Doom is too on the nose?
I like Doctor Doom.
Yes, I don't like Dum Dum Dugan, and I don't like Magneto.
Magneto is a great name.
These are dumb names. Their characters are fine. No evil guy who controls magic will call himself Magneto. Just saying.
I would.
Really, you get magnet powers, you're gonna go, I'm Magnet Toe now.
Well, when you say it like that, it sounds worse. Anyways, so yeah, Fury and Dugan arrive at the X Mansion, and they're there to help. So we get into issue 44, which is also a very fun intro scene where we get Wolverine just attacking Angel in the Danger Room, which is really fun because it's this classic trope of Wolverine like training the new kids or like initiating them by just
Mm-hmm.
full on attacking them
Yep.
during training in the danger room, and
Mm-hmm.
Angel screaming and refusing to fight.
Because he's a twink.
Yeah, and he's
Twinks
never been
don't
in a
fight.
fight before.
Yeah, but also twinks don't fight.
Who knows? We can't speak for all twinks.
Well, look, the whole thing with twinks is that they scream.
Well, if you are a twink, write into us at
Yes.
ultimatecomicspodcast@gmail.com
Yeah.
and tell us your thoughts on whether or not twinks fight.
Yeah. The whole thing with twinks, I feel, is that they scream and they ask for help from a bear.
Write in and tell us what you think. Is Josh right? Is he wrong? Do twinks fight?
I know many things about twinks.
How do you know that?
That's not the point.
Okay. Well, Angel refuses to fight. He's too scared, and Logan's like, "Hey, you asked me to show you a few moves for self-defense." And he's like, "Hey, you need practice, but if you ever get into trouble, you could always just fly away too."
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really fun scene. This is an interesting new dynamic between Wolverine and Angel, where Angel is this new kid on the block, and Logan's this seasoned vet who's just trying to give him training.
Which is funny because Angel has been in Marvel Comics actually technically longer. I believe
Yeah.
much longer.
Yeah, and their dynamic was so different in the original comics because Angel was an original member of the X-Men, and he couldn't stand Wolverine when Wolverine joined. And that's a big reason why Angel left the team after Wolverine joined, is that he just couldn't work with someone who was as ruthless and I think just had the killer instincts that Wolverine did. Which, in his early days, fair. Early days Wolverine was a dick. But
Yeah.
he softens up over time.
To be fair, this Wolverine earlier on was also very much a dick.
Yeah, that's true.
Big hairy dick.
But then later, Nick Fury is talking to Xavier in front of all the X-Men, and Xavier's like, "You can say anything you need to say in front of my X-Men."
Mm-hmm.
And so Fury, in front of all the X-Men, reveals that there's been a renegade faction of the government that is anti-mutant, and they think that Xavier is manipulating the government. And Fury doesn't have any proof of this, but he says that these are high-ranking government officials.
And he goes, and even higher in the military.
Yeah, so he's just giving them the rundown of this threat. And he also reveals to Xavier that Emma Frost is the spokesperson for this new mutant education campaign, which is an awkward moment where he's like, "Yep, I know her." And Fury's like, "Yep, I know you know her." So it's funny. And then also reveals that Beast is part of this, and they're all like, "What?" And then reveals that Alex Summers is part of it, and Cyclops is like, "What?"
What?
Because Fury's literally like, "Oh yeah, and your brother." And then Cyclops is like, "Whose brother?" And he's like, "Your brother." And he's like, "My brother? Alex?" Like, what? So Fury's like, "Hey, I can't move on this anti-mutant group myself. I can't officially enlist the X-Men." But he really just gives them all the info anyway. It's like that scene in The Incredibles where he's like, "I'd like to tell you to do this, 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 and that. I'd like to say this, 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 and that, but I can't." So officially he's like, "I can't really do anything, and I can't, my hands are tied, but here's all the info you need, so have at it."
This is why the real heroes in this story are insurance agents.
Really? That's the moral of the story here?
Our greatest president, or second greatest president, was an insurance agent.
Which president was that?
FDR. He makes an appearance in Ultimate Marvel later on, just saying.
I mean, alright, I'm a fan of FDR's policies, so you got me there.
Yeah. And but you still wouldn't fight him if you had to fight any president.
The guy's in a wheelchair.
You'd win.
It's unfair.
That's the point. Do you want to fight someone who has a fair chance?
That's disgusting, Josh.
Okay, well, he does make it. This is a weird thing, but he does make an appearance in Ultimate Marvel later, and it's really weird. I'm gonna be honest, because it's gonna be.
I can't wait.
Oh, it's good. It's gonna be Ultimate Marvel. The origins of Ultimate Marvel as story wise is honestly takes things in a completely odd direction that even. I was gonna say that even 616 wouldn't do, but the 616 does get pretty weird at times. So.
Well, I can't wait.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get to the White House lawn, where the president gives this big speech and then he unveils this new mutant education task force. And I literally thought that Gambit was on the team, but it was really just Havoc. It's because
Yep.
he's got this like head sock. That's the classic like Gambit head sock that he has.
Doesn't Havoc
And
also have a head sock?
well, he Havoc also has that like in the 90s. So I was confused for a moment because I was like, "Whoa, Gambit's back!" And he's on. And I was like, "Nope, just Havoc." False hopes, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
like Havoc and Dazzler and Karma and Beast and Emma Frost.
Yeah, we also get Emma Frost's costume.
Yeah,
So in the original comic, she has like a very famously promiscuous looking costume, and that's a
like a
big thing
white
with.
dominatrix outfit. Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. It's a dominatrix outfit. It's always been a big thing when it's part of her character. And here
yeah.
it's revealed. And this one, she's a regular teacher, so it's the White House, whatever PR team makes the. And it doesn't even look like a dominatrix. It's just like a White Queen esque
I
costume.
don't know. It looks like a censored, more PG version of her initial outfit, which is still weird because you still see the lace and everything. And I'm like, I get you're trying to honor her classic look, but also this is weird for like the White House to design this outfit for her.
Yeah, but like I don't see her naturally wearing it. Is the thing. So
Yeah, it's a little sus.
whoa,
But
whoa, millennial talk here.
that's
Not in
right.
this Christian podcast.
I am a Muslim, sir.
You know what I mean.
Anyways, the big unveiling is interrupted though because, of course, a giant sentinel attacks, and this is from the insurrectionist group. They have sicked a giant sentinel on the whole thing, and so there's this big fight. Wolverine tries to get Angel to fly him up to the top so he can cut off the head of the sentinel.
But Angel doesn't have any other powers than flying, and Wolverine's kind of heavy, so he can't really go that fast.
It's tough when you don't have like super strength to carry a
Yeah.
300-pound man. Angel's lifting Wolverine up and flying him up there. The blast from the Sentinel incinerates Wolverine's leg, and he's like, "It'll grow back," which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
And Angel, because he's so new at this, his hand slips too soon, so Wolverine misses the target.
Yep.
And then the end of issue 44 ends with there's a bunch of rubble that like falls from the White House and it lands on Hank and he's crushed. It's this big splash page of Beast just crushed under this rubble as a
Yep.
cliffhanger leading into our last issue, issue 45.
And we open up with Xavier acknowledging Beast is dead.
And I was like, what? They killed Beast? Are you
That
serious?
I will be like, I am surprised by how quickly they kill off characters. That being said, Ultimate Marvel, like, there's always the classic comic trope of if a character dies in comics, they're not really dead and they'll come back. With the exception of Uncle Ben, that's literally been true for almost every character. Aunt May comes back. Bucky dies in like the 40s and he comes back 60 years
Yeah.
later.
No, that one
And
took a minute. Yeah.
yeah.
Gwen Stacy has come back so many times.
Well, like it's more like she doesn't come back, and more like alternate versions get somehow sucked into 616
Yeah,
at this point.
clones, alternate universe versions, ghosts. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's always Gwen Stacy will persist.
And one thing you gotta respect about Ultimate Marvel is they usually do kill off a character if they die.
Yeah,
The exception being Thunderbolt Ross.
yeah,
Oh, that's spoilers, by the way.
yeah. Well, it's fine. It's minor spoilers,
Yeah.
but yeah, Storm loses it and she goes to town on this Sentinel
It
and like
does some damage to it. Like she blasts it with
yeah,
storms and
sucks it
lightning.
into a hurricane and blasts it with a bunch of lightning, but and then Jean is like telekinetically protecting civilians, and Xavier catches the Sentinel with his telekinesis because it was about to fall on a bunch of people, and Storm is like losing control, so Xavier actually just puts her to sleep with his mind.
Because in 616, Storm is an X level mutant, meaning she could just destroy a chunk of the planet.
Oh, she's an Omega level mutant.
Oh, sorry, Omega level mutant.
Yeah.
And like they don't really have that classification here, but like Storm is dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Storm is so powerful, even if without the classification system.
Yeah.
So I can understand why her losing control out of grief and rage would be a big problem.
Yeah. Luckily, we have Kitty Pryde. Yeah, I forgot she did just destroy another like apocalyptic robot before, actually.
Yeah, that was back when Wolverine and Cyclops were in the Savage Land.
Yeah,
Way back when Miller was still writing the series.
yeah. But Beast drops Kitty into the Sentinel and she destroys it.
Or Nightcrawler does.
Oh,
Beast is
sorry,
dead.
Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler. I get the general gist. It's a blue person with
That's
powers.
so racist, Josh.
Yeah. I'm sorry for all the 7 blue people in Kentucky who are like,
Yeah.
"How dare you offended the
Yeah.
Pope?"
We might actually get someone right into us about this.
Yeah, fuck the Blue Man Group.
How dare you?
Oh yeah, they're pretty good. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah.
Sorry to the Blue Man Group.
Yeah.
We love you.
We love you.
But Nightcrawler teleports Kitty up to the Sentinel. She phases through it and disrupts all the tech in there, as she does. And Colossus catches the Sentinel before it can land on any innocent bystanders. And I also think something I noticed in this fight and throughout this arc, there's just generally way too many X-Men. I didn't even notice Iceman was there until during the fight. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot Iceman was there, yeah.
Damn, I did not notice that.
There's too many of them.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me, Marvel has a corporate policy for 616 where at a certain point they stopped letting writers introduce X-Men because they lost track of them.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with there being so many of them. I just feel like maybe now we should just introduce separate teams. Like back in the 90s when they did the blue and gold teams of X-Men. I'm like, yeah, because there's too many of them to fit on one team together.
Yeah, I think Ultimate X-Men do go in that direction later on. But I feel like that's the difference between 616 and Ultimate, is that with the Ultimate X-Men, they're still in their beginning phases, so they don't, and they're officially not supposed to be doing these team-esque things, is the thing. They're still like school level, technically.
That's true. But it's like they're all just there during this fight with the Sentinel, and I'm like, there's too many of you.
Maybe it also shows how strong the Sentinel is, that like they can't really damage it despite there being a whole team.
Yeah. Well, Kitty takes it out pretty easily.
Yeah, but Kitty's like the golden goose, like.
Yeah, because anytime they go up against a technology-related problem, she just phases through it, and that's the end of story.
Yeah.
And then the fight's over, and Xavier just looks at Emma and is basically like, see? My way works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which, yeah, this story does prove him right, because it's like, yeah, you need students who are trained to actually fight and defend themselves and to protect people, because otherwise, like, the peacekeeping task force that Emma brought out, they weren't able to do anything, because Havoc later says in this story that he didn't even know how to control his powers or use them. He just froze.
But also, the "see, I'm right" is also maybe not the right thing to say at that moment.
Yeah, like,
because you're a jerk, Professor
X.
Dead.
Yeah. Like, yeah, he is a jerk. I think because there's points to what she's saying too. Yeah, you want to focus on education and more peaceful solutions, but when push comes to shove, like in cases of self-defense and protecting people, I think sometimes the pacifistic, like more peaceful solution isn't always going to work. So you need a balance.
To a certain degree, but I also feel Professor X is okay with violence because he does have a paternalistic view of humans. He goes like, we are better than them, we need to guide them, as opposed to Emma Frost, who isn't that, who has a more traditional view. That being said, when a bunch of agents do come to help her, and she does go, back away, humans.
Yeah, she now has she has a distaste for humans after her experience. I feel like this was her first experience with a Sentinel, which is like, oh, that's cute. First time, Emma.
Well, to be fair, Sentinels are not as active in Ultimate Marvel as they are in Marvel, where they're just a thing that fly around and kills people.
No, that's true.
Here, they've only been reused like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it's a very young, new universe, so that makes sense.
Also, they have Sentinels when this comic was made, they're in a war. I'm like, did Sentinels, were they used during the wars? Or do we just use them for mutants?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be answered later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, later Nick Fury and his boys arrive, and it's revealed that Karma was actually working for Fury as a Black Ops agent the whole time.
Yeah.
And so Fury talks to the president and is like, I'll take care of it.
Yeah. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Admiral is meanwhile talking to Secretary of Defense about like, this is our chance, the mutants have taken over. this is our chance. We're now in control. We killed. They look what they did to the president.
Yeah, and then it's revealed at the end of this whole rant that the Admiral goes on that the Secretary of Defense, who he was ranting to, that he was being mind controlled because Karma was using her power to possess his body.
Yep.
So she's like, we got him, General
And,
Fury.
yep.
We got this guy dead to rights.
And Karma
So,
shows up with a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents.
Yeah. And the Admiral literally takes out a gun and tries to shoot himself so he doesn't get arrested.
But
But
Karma goes, "You're not going to make yourself a martyr this time."
yeah, and he's arrested, so
Yeah.
justice is served, thankfully. And Josh saluted once again.
Yeah. Hell yeah, America.
Sometimes we can do good things. There is a funeral at the Xavier Institute for Beasts, and I am still shocked that he actually died.
Yeah.
I read this and I was like, no way, you're serious? They
No.
killed Beast?
I read this my second time reading it, and I'm like, because we're not used to characters dying and staying dead in like any other
Especially
comic.
not like major X-Men like Beast.
Yeah.
And this feels relatively, because I know Ultimate X-Men is like a 100 issue run, and this is issue 45.
Yeah.
And he's dead.
Well,
That's crazy.
Well, like, it's better than what they do to other characters where they're just gonna completely turn into creeps or monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, I feel the thing we like about Beast towards the end in 616, he becomes like a elderly professorial character. Beast was never gonna end up like that in Ultimate X-Men.
I mean, he could have.
Yeah. Also, he did just almost kill the X-Men like twice.
Yeah. I mean, Ultimate Beast has made some not great decisions and made some mistakes. It's just a shame that his story has to end like this, apparently.
Yeah. With him screwing over the X-Men for the third time.
Yeah, and then dying immediately afterwards. Like, that sucks. That's not that's not going out like a hero.
Yep.
It's a very ignoble death.
He goes up, he died like a chump.
Yeah, literally. He did die like a chump. Like, R.I.P. Beast. Ultimate Beast, you won't really be missed. You betrayed the X-Men like twice.
He also doesn't even get like killed because like like a bad. I mean, yes, the Sentinel kills him, but he dies from rubble of all things.
That's it. Yeah, he doesn't like sacrifice himself to stop the bad guy or anything.
Or die in action. He he kind of dies in action. He just dies from the environment, though technically.
Yeah, the rubble just lands on him and he dies. It's not even like George Stacy where he like saves a child from falling rubble.
Yeah.
He's just dead.
Yeah, he didn't even have the chance to fight.
So, I don't know. I'm like, really? It's pretty soon, but alright.
Yeah.
Let's see where this goes.
They're all in the X Mansion. The characters, Emma's team has just been like acquired by the X-Men basically, and Xavier goes to Emma, like kicking out is what my biggest mistake, and I'm like, man, you made a lot of big mistakes regarding like relationships and family.
Yeah, like
Just
maybe
saying.
you should not have had a romantic relationship with your student.
Yeah.
So maybe
But
that
also,
was.
I'm not surprised it went bad, considering how things went bad with your wife, dude.
Yeah, too. Yeah, maybe you should stay away from women for a while, Professor.
Yeah.
But yeah, Professor X apologizes to Emma, and he's like, "I'm sorry I shut you out, and I want your ideas as well as my ideas,"
Yeah.
which is a really nice gesture, and I think a really nice sentiment, saying we should work together and collaborate with both of our respective ideas to make a better future for mutants and humans. Yeah. And so he invites Emma, Alex, and Dazzler, he's like, you're all free to stay at the Institute. And Emma's still kind of shaken. She's not used to this world of violence. And meanwhile, Cyclops and his brother Alex, they reconcile. And Cyclops wants Alex to stay. And Alex is like, well, I can't really use my powers, so I should probably stay and learn how to use them.
Yeah.
And of course, Storm is still crying and in mourning for Beast because of the relationship they had.
Yeah.
And it kind of just ends with Cyclops being like, all right, Professor, what do we do next? And Professor X is like, I don't know. And it's a pretty bleak, bittersweet ending almost. Like, because they won and they saved the day, but also at what cost,
I do actually like this bleak ending, because sometimes, especially in political things, you don't know what the next step is, And that's fair. And that's okay. Oh, maybe that's okay, but that's like, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Because they do win, but it's not entirely a happy ending. It's realistic in that way.
Yeah.
They still suffer losses, both like through the death of Beast and also just psychological damage and scarring, and also mutant human relations have been put back a little bit because of this incident when there was supposed to be this big peacekeeping task force unveiled, and that was all kind of sabotaged.
It was pushed back by literally the thing that pushed it forward in the beginning, which is them stopping insurrectionists.
Yeah, no, exactly.
There's also this thing where like in Marvel vs. Capcom the game, there's a famous Magneto quote where he goes like, if he beats an X-Men character, he goes, "The dream is dead." And right now, the dream is dead. Emma Frost's dream is dead. Like,
Yeah, but there's hope because at least because Xavier wants to integrate her ideas into the school and he
yeah,
wants her to stick around.
yeah. There's also something interesting where I think like Magneto's views are the worst. Xavier's are a little bit better, and Emma Frost has the most idealistic views.
Hmm.
And it's good because like the Xavier view is not the worst, so it's a good fallback. But Emma Frost has a more progressive and peaceful view, but that's
Yeah,
over. And she gave up on it. She basically acknowledges she's in this world of violence now. She says, "Back off, human." You know,
yeah,
her dream
yeah,
is dead.
yeah. And to be clear, this is true of the ultimate version of the characters. Regular Emma Frost does not have this peaceful ideology at all. This focus that I feel like regular Emma Frost is focused on. I'm a teacher, I'm going to protect my students, but also like fuck the rest of the world, really.
Yeah.
Like I want nothing to do with you guys.
She also would definitely be down to manipulate George W. Bush.
Mm-hmm.
She might not even use powers to do it.
Because I think Emma Frost's ideology in the main universe is really more about taking advantage of the systems that have been put in place and using your powers and using what you have to get one over on humans before they can get you, and to
Which,
kind of take over from there, like the Hellfire Club.
which is kind of Professor X's like view in Ultimate, actually.
Yeah, I think
Like,
it's similar in how Ultimate Professor X wants to integrate into the system and to offer up kind of an exchange, I guess, between
yeah,
like the humans and mutants, like
yeah,
offering them something so that they can offer you something back. Yeah, that's true. But it's quite an interesting ending, and this is also the end of Brian Michael Bendis and David Finch's run, very short-lived run on Ultimate X-Men. They had just two story arcs together. I think it was like 12 issues together of the
yeah,
two of them on this title. So it was very brief, but I think it was pretty well done, honestly, this whole run.
yeah. I
I,
liked it. I personally, I mean, I think other than the fact I felt this was like it brought back old plot points again. It felt
mm,
like 3 arcs instead of like one. I did like it.
yeah, I think the two of them together worked really well. They made really, if nothing else, David Finch's artwork is incredible and super, like it all just feels so polished and well done. And I can see why the two of these guys worked together on New Avengers when it first started, because I'm like,
Yeah,
this is a top tier creative team here. Why wouldn't they work together on bringing together like Spider-Man and Wolverine with Iron Man and Captain America? Like that's fantastic.
yeah,
But yeah, the next creative team is going to be Brian K. Vaughan writing. So it's definitely a new era for X-Men all over again very
yeah.
soon.
Also exciting. He is gonna be the guy who wrote "Why the Last Man" and "Runaways."
Yes, Brian K. Vaughan. Well, he's a huge name in comics because also, yeah, Saga as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. But two solid comics. I'm excited.
You have
Yeah.
any last like overall thoughts on these issues, Josh?
No, I think I said my piece, man.
All right, and going full hippie on me.
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa,
I
whoa.
think I said
Hey,
my piece, man.
no, I resent that accusation. I am not a hippie, sir.
You
I have never been, never will be a hippie.
know, you sound like Bill Clinton.
That's a Hank Hill quote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That makes sense. I love King
yeah,
of the Hill.
yeah. I've only seen it a handful of times. I never liked it as a kid.
It's fun as an adult, definitely. But Yeah, I think overall this run and these issues were really well done. I love the way I love the way the story progressed. I loved how it picked up on a lot of stuff from the
Yeah,
ending of Mark Miller's run. I love how at least like tried to salvage the Ultimate Wolverine character
yeah,
overall. A lot of fun new additions to the cast, a lot of like iconic mutants introduced. So, and took some great like directions and new twists and turns. But
yeah.
yeah, until next time, Josh, what is our email if listeners want to contact us?
It is Ultimate Comics Podcast at gmail.com. Remember, that is podcast singular and comics plural. Ultimate
That
Comics
is right.
Podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, email us about your thoughts on these issues, on Ultimate Marvel, Marvel in general, these characters, our show, just
Yeah.
pretty much anything.
And let us
Um,
know about the twink.
yeah, please let us know if Twinks really do fight.
Yes.
And we also have an Instagram account. It's just Ultimate Comics Podcast, where you can, like our photos, like our stories, our reels. We also just recently started a TikTok where we share more reels on there. So follow us
Yeah.
on TikTok at Ultimate Comics Podcast and on YouTube as well. We have a YouTube channel. So
Yeah.
we're all over the place, man. Like you
Yeah.
can't get rid of us if you tried.
I know. Unless you go to Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, even then, apparently someone's writing our script from Detroit. So
Oh, I mean, the only one of us is on Eastern time. Just saying.
you were in New York last weekend and you know it.
Was I in Detroit though?
You were on Eastern time. I wasn't in
How?
Detroit.
Why would I be in Detroit?
Why would I be in Detroit, dude?
Why would I be in Detroit? How about that?
Okay, but once again, I ask of you, what possible reason could I have to be in Detroit?
Work.
I'm a barista.
And I'm not a car maker, so.
All right. Well, that's been enough fun banter for this episode. Next episode, we're going to be back to Ultimate Fantastic Four. We're going to be covering issues
Yeah.
7 through 12. So I'm very excited to get back to that. But yeah, until next time, everyone, thanks for listening. Take care and make mine Ultimate Marvel. Bye bye.
Bye bye.